Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In a stack of ominous correspondence, each notice bore a harbinger of impending financial crisis. As the urgent shades of red escalated from final warnings to threat of collection, the hospital bills stood out with a stark, almost menacing, white background, their figures seeming to balloon with every statement. Coffee grew cold as Rhett Marshall grappled with the numerical evidence of his mounting financial woes. How could the medical expenses have skyrocketed so high when his meager part-time income barely sufficed for rent? He traced the predicament to the ill-fated day his mother's cancer diagnosis began draining their savings. The insurance had denied half the claims, citing pre-existing conditions in bureaucratic language that felt intentionally obtuse. Rhett ran a hand through his shaggy brown hair, feeling the stubble on his jaw that he hadn't bothered to shave in days. At 32, he should have been established in a career, not scrambling to make ends meet while watching his mother's health deteriorate despite the expensive treatments. His phone buzzed with a notification. Another job alert. Rhett had signed up for every casting agency and job board in the city, desperate for anything that paid more than minimum wage. Most were dead ends, unpaid internships, commission-only sales positions, or sketchy modeling gigs that screamed scam. But this one was different. Urgent. Female model needed for high-end clothing advertisement. No experience necessary. One-day shoot. $5,000 compensation. Rhett nearly spat out his coffee. $5,000? For one day? That would cover the most pressing medical bills and buy them some time. He was about to swipe past it, obviously not for him, when he paused. The desperation that had been building for months formed a wild thought. They needed a woman. But what if... No. It was ridiculous. But $5,000. His finger hovered over the listing. With his slender build and what his mother always called delicate features, he'd been mistaken for a woman from behind more than once when his hair was longer. College theater had taught him something about makeup and presentation. Before he could talk himself out of it, Rhett tapped on the application. The worst they could do was say no. The form was simple. Name, contact information, measurements, experience. He hesitated at the name field, then typed Paige Marshall, his mother's middle name. There was something fitting about that. For measurements, he guessed as best he could, deliberately choosing numbers that seemed plausible for his frame, but feminine. For experience, he listed the college theater productions he'd been in, technical enough to seem legitimate without claiming professional modeling experience. The last field requested a photo. That was the deal breaker. He had nothing that would pass. Rhett closed the application and stood up, pacing the small apartment. This was madness. He couldn't pull this off. He wasn't a woman. He wasn't a model. He was just desperate. His eyes fell on the framed photo of him and his mother from 2 years ago, before her diagnosis. Her smile was radiant, full of the vitality that the treatments had slowly leached away. Next to it was her wig stand, now empty since she'd stopped bothering with appearance as the pain intensified. A wild idea formed. 30 minutes later, Rhett stared at himself in the bathroom mirror, his mother's makeup applied with surprising skill remembered from theater days. He'd raided her closet for a blouse that fit his shoulders, tucked and pinned to create the illusion of a feminine waistline. Her auburn wig sat slightly askew on his head. He'd have to adjust it, but the effect was startling. With his clean-shaven face, the transformation was more convincing than he'd expected. Not perfect, not professional, but possible. He snapped a selfie, adjusted the lighting to hide the imperfections, and sent in the application before courage failed him. Then he washed everything off, changed back into his worn jeans and t-shirt, and tried to forget the strange feeling that had come over him when he'd looked in the mirror and seen someone else looking back. The call came the next morning. A woman named Diana, speaking in the rapid-fire cadence of someone perpetually behind schedule, informed him that Paige had been selected for a preliminary fitting. "The shoot's tomorrow, so we need you at the studio in 2 hours. Can you make it?" Rhett's heart hammered against his ribs. "Yes," he said, pitching his voice higher. "I'll be there." "Great. Bring minimal makeup. Our team will handle everything else." The address was in the fashionable district downtown, a sleek building with reflective windows and a minimalist lobby. Rhett, dressed in his best approximation of casual women's wear borrowed from his mother's closet and wearing the auburn wig more carefully styled, approached the reception desk with his pulse thundering in his ears. "I'm here for the Bellissima advertisement shoot. Paige Marshall." The receptionist checked a tablet. "12th floor. They're expecting you." The elevator ride gave Rhett precious moments to question every decision that had led him to this point. He'd committed fraud. He'd lied on an application. He was about to be humiliated when they realized he wasn't a woman. But his mother needed those treatments. The elevator doors opened to reveal a bustling studio space. People with headsets hurried in every direction. Racks of clothing lined the walls, and bright lights illuminated a white backdrop where photographers were setting up equipment. "Paige?" "Thank God." A woman with silver-streaked black hair and tortoiseshell glasses approached, clipboard in hand. Her navy blue pantsuit exuded authority. "I'm Diana. We spoke on the phone. Come with me. We're running behind, and the director wants to see all the models before we start fittings." Diana led him through the controlled chaos to a corner where several women in various stages of preparation were waiting. All were conventionally attractive, all were slender, and all were obviously born female. Rhett's confidence plummeted. "Wait here," Diana said, then disappeared into the fray. The woman beside Rhett offered a sympathetic smile. "First big shoot?" He nodded, afraid to speak much. "Don't worry. Bellissima is good to work with. The pay is great, and they actually feed us, unlike some clients." Before Rhett could respond, a man with artfully disheveled gray hair and a black turtleneck approached the group. His penetrating gaze swept over each model, pausing fractionally longer on Rhett. "Ladies, I'm Vincent, creative director for this campaign. Bellissima is launching their Everyday Elegance line, and we're looking for models who can embody sophisticated femininity without seeming unapproachable." He walked slowly down the line, studying each woman. When he reached Rhett, he stopped. You're new." Rhett's throat tightened. "Yes." Vincent circled him, eyes narrowed. "There's something interesting about you. Almost nostalgic. Like a classic film star wearing modern clothes." He turned to Diana. "This one for the red cocktail dress." Diana made a note on her clipboard as Vincent continued down the line, assigning garments to each model. "The red dress?" the friendly model whispered. "That's the centerpiece of the campaign. You must have really impressed him." Rhett couldn't speak. He'd expected to be discovered and thrown out. Instead, he'd been given the prime spot. A makeup artist whisked him away to a chair in front of a mirror surrounded by lights. "I'm Tomas. Close your eyes for me." For the next hour, Rhett sat motionless as Tomas worked. He removed the wig, expertly applied a wig cap, and then replaced it with a more expensive auburn wig that felt remarkably natural. The makeup process was meticulous: foundation, contouring to soften his jawline, subtle highlights to emphasize his cheekbones, eyeshadow that made his hazel eyes appear larger and more luminous.
"You have amazing bone structure,"
Thomas commented.
"Makes my job easier."
When Rhett finally opened his eyes, he barely recognized himself. The person in the mirror was undeniably feminine, elegant, poised, with a certain vulnerability in her expression.
"Time for wardrobe,"
Thomas said, directing him to another area separated by screens. The wardrobe assistant, a brisk woman named Helen, helped him into undergarments that created subtle curves, then brought out the red cocktail dress. The fabric was luxurious, a deep crimson that caught the light as it moved. "Arms up," Helen instructed, lowering the dress carefully over his head. She zipped it up, adjusted the fit, and stepped back to assess.
"Perfect. The director has a good eye."
The dress fit as though it had been made for him, accentuating his narrow waist and creating the illusion of hips where there were none. The neckline was modest but flattering, and the length hit just above his knees, showing off legs that had always been one of his better features. Helen brought red heels that added 4 inches to his height. "Can you walk in these?" "I think so," Rhett said, taking a few tentative steps. Years of helping his mother when she was too weak to walk steadily had given him a sense of balance.
"Good enough. Let's get you to set."
The main studio had been transformed. The white backdrop now had subtle shadows creating depth, and furniture had been arranged to suggest an upscale apartment. Vincent was speaking with the photographer when Rhett approached in the red dress. Both men stopped talking.
"Well,"
Vincent said.
"Diana certainly delivered."
The photographer nodded appreciatively.
"The camera's going to love you. Have you modeled before?"
"Just small projects," Rhett said, the lie coming more easily now. "Nothing like this."
"You're a natural,"
Vincent said.
"Let's see what you can do."
The next 3 hours were a blur of instructions, poses, and continuous adjustments. Stand here, look there, chin up, shoulders back, relax your hands. The phrase Rhett heard most often, however, was, "Perfect, hold that." Something strange happened as the shoot progressed. Initially terrified of being discovered, Rhett found himself relaxing into the role. The clothes felt right. The way people addressed him as Paige felt right. Even the way he moved began to feel natural rather than performed. During a break, Vincent approached him with a bottle of water.
"You have remarkable instincts for someone new to this."
"Thank you," Rhett said, sipping carefully to avoid smudging his lipstick.
"There's an authenticity to your femininity that's rare. Many models pose as what they think a woman should be. You simply are."
Rhett's hand trembled slightly. "That's very kind."
"It's not kindness, it's observation."
Vincent studied him.
"We have another shoot next week for the casual wear line. Are you available?"
The question caught Rhett off guard.
"Another shoot?" "Same rate, different wardrobe. The campaign needs continuity, and you've already proven perfect for our aesthetic."
$5,000 more, another $10,000 total. That would cover the immediate medical bills and give them breathing room.
"Yes,"
Rhett said.
"I'm available." "Excellent." Vincent smiled. "I think Paige Marshall may have a promising career ahead of her."
The name settled over Rhett like a comfortable blanket. For the rest of the shoot, he was Paige, confident, graceful, feminine in a way that felt increasingly uncomplicated. When the day finally ended, Diana handed him an envelope. "Your day rate. The rest will come through proper payment channels once the paperwork is processed. You did well today." Rhett carefully placed the envelope in his purse, another borrowed item from his mother.
"Thank you for the opportunity,"
he said. "Be on time next week," Diana replied, already turning her attention to her tablet. "Coffee is at 8, shooting starts at 9. Rhett changed back into his street clothes, but Toss insisted he keep the wig.
"It's part of your look now. The auburn suits you perfectly. We'll use it again next week."
In the cab ride home, Rhett kept touching the smooth strands of the auburn wig, marveling at how natural it felt. The envelope in his purse contained more money than he'd made in the past 2 months combined. His mother was asleep when he returned home, the evening nurse watching television in the living room. Rhett paid her from the envelope, then sat by his mother's bedside, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest.
"I found a way to help," he whispered. "It's unusual, but it's working."
She didn't stir, but he imagined she would understand. She had always encouraged him to be himself, even when that self didn't quite fit the expectations others had for him. Throughout the week, Rhett paid bills, scheduled additional treatments, and researched feminine presentation. What had begun as a desperate deception was evolving into something more complex. He practiced walking in heels in the privacy of his bedroom. He watched tutorials on feminine mannerisms. He even ordered a few basic cosmetics to practice with. All for the job, he told himself. All to be convincing. The second shoot went even more smoothly than the first. This time, Rhett arrived as Paige from the start, having done his basic makeup at home and worn the auburn wig styled simply. The wardrobe for this shoot included cashmere sweaters in soft pastels, tailored slacks that emphasized his long legs, and delicate jewelry that caught the light. Vincent was effusive in his praise.
"You wear these clothes as if you've always lived in them,"
he said during a break.
"Many models look like they're playing dress-up. You look like you're simply living your life, and we're privileged to capture it."
The compliment warmed Rhett in unexpected ways. All his life, he'd felt slightly off-center, as if the person everyone saw wasn't quite aligned with who he was inside. As Paige, that misalignment vanished. After the second shoot, Diana approached with another offer. "Vincent wants you for the entire campaign. 6 more shoots over the next 2 months. Exclusive contract. Significant pay increase." The amount she named made Rhett dizzy. It would cover all of his mother's treatments, with enough left over to move them to a better apartment with proper accessibility features.
"Yes,"
he said immediately. "I'd be honored." Diana's professional demeanor cracked slightly. "Between us, Vincent rarely takes such interest in new talent."
"Whatever you're doing, keep doing it."
What he was doing, Rhett realized on the way home, was finally being honest, not with others, but with himself. The shoots continued, each one feeling more natural than the last. Casual wear gave way to business attire, then evening wear, then seasonal transitions. Rhett's calendar filled with Paige's appointments. The other models accepted him without question, sharing tips on skincare and inviting him to brunches between shoots. At home, his mother's condition stabilized. The new treatments were working, and for the first time in months, the doctors used words like hopeful and responding well. She noticed the changes in her son, the growing confidence, the subtle shifts in his presentation even when he wasn't working, but said nothing, simply watching with eyes that had always seen more than he gave her credit for. Between shoots, Rhett found it increasingly difficult to return to his male presentation. The clothes felt wrong. The movements felt stilted. Even his own name sounded foreign to his ears. After the fourth shoot, Vincent invited him to coffee to discuss the final images for the campaign.
"You've become the face of Bellissima,"
Vincent said, sliding a portfolio across the table.
"These are the selects for the billboards and magazine spreads."
Rhett, or was it Paige now, opened the portfolio and caught his breath. The woman in the photos was stunning, confident, at ease in her skin. The auburn hair framed a face that radiated an inner peace he'd never felt as Rhett. "I've been in this business 30 years, Vincent continued. "I've worked with supermodels and actresses, but there's something about you, Paige, an authenticity that can't be manufactured." The name didn't even register as false anymore.
"Thank you,"
Paige said softly. Vincent leaned forward.
"I know. You know."
Her heart stopped.
"Know what?"
"That you're transgender." The word hung between them, neither accusation nor judgment, simply observation. Paige began, but found she had no defense prepared.
"It doesn't matter to me,"
Vincent said. "What matters is that when I put those clothes on you, they come alive in a way they don't for other models. Your journey gives you a perspective they don't have." Tears welled in Paige's eyes. I haven't...
"Labels are for clothing, not people,"
Vincent said, patting her hand. "But if you ever want resources or recommendations for your transition, medical, legal, whatever, I know everyone in this city. My door is always open." The conversation shifted to the remaining shoots, but Paige's mind kept returning to that single word, transgender. Was that what this was? Not a deception for money, but a truth she'd been hiding from herself. That evening, sitting beside her mother's bed, Paige found herself speaking without planning to. "Mom, there's something I need to tell you." Her mother turned, eyes clear for the first time in weeks, thanks to the new medications. "About why you've been wearing makeup even when you're not working?" Paige's hand flew to her face. She'd been so careful to remove everything, but mothers noticed things. She took a deep breath. "The modeling job isn't exactly what I told you." Slowly, haltingly, she explained everything. The advertisement looking for women, the desperate application, the transformation, and how right it had all felt. When she finished, her mother was silent for a long moment. Then she reached for her hand.
"Rhett,"
she said softly.
"I've always known there was a part of you that you kept hidden. Even as a child, there was something in your eyes, a sadness when you thought no one was looking."
"You're not angry?" Paige asked, voice breaking. "Why would I be angry that my child found herself? That's all any parent wants." She squeezed Paige's hand. "If Paige is who you truly are, then that's who you've always been. The name might be new to me, but the soul inside is the one I've always loved." The tears came freely now, years of tension releasing in a flood. "I don't know what to do next," Paige admitted. "This all happened so fast." "You do what you've always done," her mother said. "You take care of business. You make plans. You move forward." She smiled. "And maybe you teach me how to apply eyeliner, because yours is flawless, and I never quite mastered the technique." The laugh that bubbled up from Paige's chest felt like the first honest sound she'd made in years. The final shoots for the Bellissima campaign coincided with her mother's last scheduled treatments. The doctors were using words like remission and recovery now. The new apartment was ready, with wide doorways for the wheelchair her mother sometimes still needed, and a shower she could enter without assistance. For the last shoot, Vincent had saved the most elegant outfit, a black evening gown with subtle beading that caught the light like stars. As Thomas applied her makeup, now familiar with every contour of her face, Paige realized this was the end of something important.
"You seem melancholy today,"
Thomas observed, blending eyeshadow with an expert touch. "It's the last shoot," Paige said. "I'm going to miss this." Thomas smiled. "Honey, with the response these ads are getting, this is just the beginning for you. Vincent's phone hasn't stopped ringing with requests for the auburn-haired model from the Bellissima campaign." The shoot itself was like a celebration. Everyone knew they'd created something special. The photographs would appear on billboards in major cities, in fashion magazines globally, and across social media platforms. Paige Marshall was about to become a recognized face. As the day wrapped, Vincent approached her with a thick envelope. "Your final payment, plus the bonus we discussed." He handed it to her. "And this." The second envelope contained business cards from 3 modeling agencies, a card for an endocrinologist known for working with transgender patients, and the contact information for a lawyer specializing in legal name changes and gender marker updates. "No pressure," Vincent said, "but options are good to have." Paige hugged him impulsively. "Thank you. For everything." "Thank yourself," he replied. "You did the hard part." On her way out, Diana stopped her. "We're having a wrap party tomorrow night at Le Cirque. The whole team will be there, plus executives from Bellissima. 8 o'clock! Wear something fabulous." "I'll be there," Paige promised. At home, her mother was sitting up in bed, looking through a photo album. She glanced up when Paige entered. "How was the final shoot?" "Amazing." Paige sat beside her. "And a little scary. It's the end of the project, but I think it might be the beginning of something else." Her mother turned the album toward her. On the page was a photograph Paige had never seen. Herself at perhaps 5 years old, draped in her mother's scarf, an oversized necklace hanging to her waist, a look of pure joy on her small face. "You always knew," her mother said softly, "even when the rest of us didn't have words for it." Paige touched the photograph, memories surfacing of stolen moments in front of mirrors, of Halloween costumes chosen with secret motivations, of dreams dismissed upon waking. "I have decisions to make," she said. "Yes," her mother agreed. "But you don't have to make them alone." The wrap party was held in a private room at Le Cirque, with champagne flowing freely and executives making speeches about sales projections and brand positioning. Paige wore a midnight blue dress she'd purchased with her own money. The first piece of feminine clothing she'd bought for herself rather than borrowed or been provided for a shoot. Vincent introduced her to important people whose names she struggled to remember. Models from other campaigns complimented her work. A woman from a major agency slipped her a business card with "Call Me" written on the back. Midway through the evening, the Bellissima marketing director called for attention. "Before the billboards go up next week, we wanted to share the final images with the team that made them possible." A screen descended from the ceiling, and suddenly Paige was looking at herself, larger than life. The images cycled through the campaign. Paige in the red cocktail dress that had started everything, in a cream cashmere sweater with her auburn hair loose around her shoulders, in tailored slacks and a silk blouse that made her look like she belonged in a boardroom, and finally in the black evening gown, her expression serene and confident. The room applauded. Vincent raised his glass in her direction. Diana actually smiled. But all Paige could see was the truth that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The person in those images wasn't a disguise or a character. It was her, Paige Marshall, finally visible after years of concealment. The next morning, she made 3 phone calls, to the endocrinologist, to the lawyer, and to the modeling agency. Then she sat down with her mother over coffee. "I've made those decisions," she said. Her mother covered her hand with her own. "And?" "I'm going to transition. Officially, medically, legally." The words felt both terrifying and relieving to say aloud. Paige isn't a disguise I put on for work. She's who I've always been. "I know," her mother said simply. "I think I've always known. The modeling might continue. There's interest from agencies, or it might not. But either way." Paige took a deep breath. "This is me. This is my life now." "Then I'm happy for you," her mother said. "And proud. It takes courage to become who you truly are." 3 months later, Paige stood on a busy street corner, looking up at a billboard featuring her face. The Bellissima campaign had launched to significant attention, and her phone hadn't stopped ringing with offers. The hormones she'd started were beginning to subtly reshape her face and body. Her legal name change was processing through the courts. The auburn hair that had once been a wig was now her own, growing out naturally and styled in loose waves around her face. The clothes she wore, a soft green sweater and dark jeans, were from her own closet, purchased with her own earnings. Pedestrians rushed past, some glancing up at the billboard, some looking at Paige, making the connection or not. It didn't matter. For the first time in her life, the person she presented to the world aligned perfectly with the person she knew herself to be. Her phone buzzed, a text from her mother, who was now strong enough to volunteer 3 days a week at the hospital where she'd once been a patient. "Saw the new billboard on my way to the hospital. My daughter is a star. Dinner tonight?" Paige smiled and typed her reply. "Wouldn't miss it." She took one last look at the billboard, at the woman with auburn hair and a serene smile who had emerged from a desperate decision into an authentic life, then turned and walked confidently toward her future, high heels clicking rhythmically on the pavement, at home in her body at last.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!